we're going to dive right into the Class 6A boys bracket. We're keeping you around for 6A boys, 5A boys, and then we'll let you go. I did get confirmation. We will have Kyle Newman of the Denver Post popping in at some point. So we're just going to wait for Danny Bailey, our EP, to give me the thumbs up, and we'll just bring Kyle in whenever it's convenient for him. We just always operate on Kyle's timeline. So.
You know, he's a post guy. He's a professional. We got to honor that, and, it is what it is.
All right. 6A boys basketball bracket. Top 4 seeds: Chaparral, Ralston Valley, Rangeview, Arvada West. Quick question, and before we dive into the actual quadrants of this bracket, are all 4 of those teams making it to the Final Four?
I think 3 out of the 4 do.
Who do you not like?
It's not that so like Chaparral, Ralston Valley, and Rangeview have all shown to be different. They're just a different, like I want to say that they have, how do I say this the right way and be nice? They want to be, those 3 teams are legitimate. Like you go through their roster 5 through 6, they're all really, really talented basketball players. Arvada West might be the best team I've seen, like how they play together. And like, they just want to, it reminds me of old school Rock Canyon a little bit, where they're ready for, or maybe even an old school like Grandview under Mike Rogers, where it's just like, we're here to grind this and make you wish you played football or something. But they're all outstanding athletes, but they're not necessarily outstanding basketball players. And that's not I'm not trying to slide anyone, because Arvada West has, the Vegas kid who's signed to go to Texas for baseball. The other kid, Keegan Ballesteri, he's going to CSU Pueblo for football. So those kind of things, they kind of matter, and they start to matter in the Final Four in the grade 8 when you need to have someone to make a shot. So that's kind of why I think those other 3 can make it. I think Rangeview might have the tougher bunch to kind of get to that spot for the Final Four. That quadrant, that little section that they are in down there, that's kind of nasty when you look at it, because it's it's Overland and Thunder Ridge, and then Overland might be one of the hottest teams coming in to the tournament outside of their last second loss to Creek there in the finals of the Centennial League tournament. Or no, that was the semifinals. But they might be the hottest team coming in, because they were just tearing up the Centennial League that last second half. So, Rangeview having to go through a hot Overland team or a Thunder Ridge team that's big, and they with the Drew Payne, he's a load inside, and they don't necessarily have that, but they have a lot of size on the perimeter. Rangeview does. They were special, beating the snot out of George over the weekend. So I think they might have the toughest route there.
So then you think that third quadrant, that's for anyone who's looking at the bracket on ColoradoPreps.com, that's your bottom right, or I'm sorry, the fourth quadrant. Fourth quadrant is sorry, Danny, hit you a little too early, but that group right there, you think that's going to be the toughest road to get to the Coliseum? Or
I think out of the 4, I think it is. I think Arvada West, they're just going to have, they're not going to necessarily, I think for them, they like to play those tough, close, grinder games. So I don't necessarily see it being an issue for them until like you get to the Elite 8, and then it depends on. And I think this goes for 6A and 5A, and this has probably been the most important year for your seedings of how it's going to play out for you. Because if you just got that wrong seed, because in the past, we had teams like in the Thunder Ridge teams that went back to back. It really didn't matter where they were. It didn't matter for Mesa Ridge where they were in 5A, because they were just better than everyone else, right? When they had the real brothers. So I think this was the year where it was the most important of like, okay, where are we getting our seeds? Because like you take take example, two teams that had a really great year, or I want to say really great years and kind of surprising years in a sense. Brighton has their best season in 50 years. League champs, 22-1. Their only loss coming to Arvada West. Chatfield having a great year, upsurgent since, I remember there was a time where they went back when Riley Welch was there. They had a run at the Elite Eight way back when, but they haven't really been in the talk of like even Jeffco 5A or 5A 6A now. And they have great years. They get to meet each other, and then their consolation is probably playing Chaparral. If I would have just lost 2 more games, I could have got someone else other than Chaparral.
Yeah.
But you kind of look at, then you go over to the other side and you see Denver South and Regis. You're like, geez Louise, that's just all right. Let's play this the second round game. And then you got Cherokee Trail and Grandview. And you're like, well, why didn't they move that game? And that's the kind of like where I said, like, the whole CHSAA, and I tweeted it out, and I quoted their thing on the basketball bulletin that says you can move teams 1 spot up or down to avoid that first round, second round matchup. And it would have taken moving another team a spot over, and I think I moved Cherokee Trail over 1, and that would have worked. But I don't know if it's like, I don't know the reasoning behind why they didn't necessarily, or is it just like, well, you can only move the 1 team 1 spot, because then if you move that 1 team, like if you move Cherokee Trail 1 spot or the other, it still gave you a Centennial League matchup there in the second round. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think this is probably a different issue, but I think that kind of goes back to something that I've been, standing on a soapbox and screaming for the better part of a couple of years, is the tournament field's too big. It's way, way, way too big. And I mean, if you actually just took off, you call it, you said it earlier, Matt, what do we call that first round? We don't really call it anything. I think
we should call a play-in, really. It's probably what we should do.
It is 100% the play-in round. That's what we should acknowledge it as. And I think if you get rid of it, you actually have a really good size state tournament where, again, you can then manipulate those first round matchups to avoid a league showdown. And you get some really, really interesting things. I haven't gone through and really been able to do that. But if you just took 20 and 21, flip them, right, that's still a league matchup. So if we go to 13 and 14, still a league matchup. But then you can just kind of wash your hands of it and say, these are the 24 teams, go.
Right. And I'm starting to get really old and grumpy about state tournaments and classes and mixed classes.
Oh, buddy.
And, I'm starting to think we should just move to maybe 1 or 2 classes and have an all-comers tournament. And really, at the end of the day, it might actually shorten the season for some teams and let them get on the track like they want to do anyway. I know that sounds kind of condescending and kind of mean, but there's a lot of schools that feel that way.
I get what you're saying, and it's probably a different podcast or a different show for a different time.
Yeah.
Because I want to get Doug's thoughts on what he sees in the tournament that we're going into. But I've always felt if you added 2 games to the regular season, right? So then your regular season is finishing up this week, and you go to a 24-team state tournament, you're finishing at about the same time, and you're getting rid of a lot of these issues. I still think you need to go back to 5 classifications. I think having a 6 classification of basketball was ridiculous the moment it got voted in, and more is not better. I'm a big proponent of that, but again, that's for another time. Doug, you were very curious when Matt was listing off his 3 out of 4 that don't get to the semifinals. So are you in agreement on that? And which quadrant really has your attention as we get into this?
Yeah. And before I say that, I will tell you guys, and talking about my dad earlier, when I was a senior in high school, CHSAA had a 6th classification, and we were in it. And we were also a pretty bad team. And at that time, I want to say every team in the state made the playoffs. And as I was telling you last week on the show, we were dismissed instantly. And I believe, if memory serves, that 6A classification only lasted for 2 years. So I'll be curious to see if this is something that has longevity, if people, have positive or negative feelings about it here into our second year of it. So yeah, I think you're right. That's a podcast for a different day. But yeah, I thought your thoughts on the top 4 seeds were spot on. And I almost look at it as I feel confident about Shap and Rangeview, and I almost kind of look at Ralston Valley and Arvada as one of those will fall. I think at the beginning of the season, I don't know that anybody thought that 2 schools from Jeffco would be atop the seeding. And whether that's because of tradition or because of lack of knowledge of the rosters that they have at either one of those schools, both of them are a little bit of a surprise. So I think, as you said, you certainly don't want to take anything away from them, but I almost have to see it to believe it, to see 2 Jeffco schools in the Final Four. So I think you're spot on with your assessment, especially about Arvada West. The one thing I'd say about Arvada West, and you kind of said, hey, they got a lot of great athletes, maybe not quite as many great basketball players. I remember the Thunder Ridge teams of the earlier 2000s that were kind of built that way. They had the Jesse Nadings of the world, just guys that could compete at anything and were strong and get rebounds and play defense. And they had a lot of success. So I wonder if that, it favors Arvada West in that sense, that they've got a lot of guys that can do everything. I will say those Thunder Ridge teams had some also really, really good basketball players too. So, I can't disagree with what you're saying about quadrant 4. For me, I kind of weighed that with quadrant 3. I look at quadrant 3 and I think Ralston Valley and George are kind of right there. Obviously, 2 teams that are supposed to emerge from there. But I think, you have Regis and Columbine, and I think either one of those teams can present problems for anybody on any given night. I mean, Regis has tremendous scoring. They've got a lot of size, and Columbine just kind of has that electricity. They've got some really, really good scoring, guards.
Boykin boys. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, they've got some firepower, and as Arvada West found out, that if you don't, put that fire out early and often against Columbine, you let them get rolling, they can beat anybody. And do I think they will? I probably wouldn't bet on them as far as, making it all the way to the Final Four. But you look at all those teams, Ralston Valley, George Washington, Regis, Columbine. I mean, anything could happen in that quadrant.
That's kind of brutal now that you bring it up. But the thing with Regis is, if Fiedler gets on one like he did in the last state tournament, and with the way that it kind of shakes out, he could have him back at the Coliseum. You're just like, he gets on another one, they're back in the Elite Eight, and there's a reason he got signed to go to Colorado State, and that's to put the ball in the basket. And that kid can shoot it, and he has no fear when he shoots it. It will go up from anywhere. Volleyball line in is fair game. Some will even argue volleyball past the volleyball line a little bit on occasion. But that kid, the thing with Regis is they just need someone that can go along with him that one time, and that's kind of been their MO. They've had like 7 games, I think, settled by 1 score games. Like they're this close to being, a top 4 seed probably, if they just have three shots, three putbacks go in. I mean, they're right there. And then, I think the Chaparral game got away from them a little bit later, but in league play they were right there. I think there was only one other loss, maybe by double digits. George and South are a little bit of Jekyll and Hydes lately. They can beat teams by 30 and then turn around and get beat by 30. Like, you just don't really know. the reason I like Arvada, or not Arvada West, the reason I like Ralston Valley is that it seemed like once they got that one loss to Arvada West, they're like, all right, we understand now. And now they've just been beating the socks off people. And you're just like, okay, they got it. They understand what they need to do. And, they have a really good player with Caden Burkita, who's going to Black Hills. They got a really good athlete in Frank Saute and Zeke Andrews, the football player. That's a really good, solid team as well. That quadrant's kind of fun. That's going to be a mess. And then, you look at like Chaparral and Rain in who's that in the other bottom there? They might have the easier route to the Final Four, or at least to the Elite Eight. But especially with how balanced everything has been throughout the year, I would be surprised if those 3 out of those 4 don't make it. I wouldn't be surprised, because it's just been that kind of year. Because Mountain Vista had Chaparral beat. They had them beat, and it was a 4-point game with 30 seconds left. They had them beat. And then freaking Williams hits a 3. Luke Howery appears. There's a jump ball. If you guys go back and watch that last 20 seconds of basketball, it was phenomenal. It was great, great basketball. And Mountain Vista ends up losing it 1-1 because they let Luke Howery get loose and make a layup with like 5 seconds left.
Well, so, and you mentioned Mountain Vista, right? Because that's a team that if you told me today they're in the Final Four, I wouldn't doubt it for a second.
Right.
Right. Now you look at that, you look at quadrant 2. That's where my attention is kind of, and you mentioned Arvada West a little bit earlier, and I think their biggest win was obviously that win over Ralston Valley in that first matchup. But that was a little bit of our Jeffco guy, Dennis Ployce, was the one who texted me and said it was basically a rock fight, right? It was
it was.
It was a tighter whistle, little bit of a game that was off pace for Ralston Valley and didn't go in their favor. But when you look at that bottom grouping, you can't really discount what Jarris Crabshaw can do at Eagle Crest. I mean, that team, he coached that team so well to a state championship last year. He's a little fired up if we look at the social medias over
a little bit.
So some of the CSML nonsense and the fact that they're not sharing film. So if you told me that he's going to take it out on Liberty, I also believe you on that one. But Rock Canyon is the team that jumps out to me the most because they have one in-state loss. It was by 4 points, and it was to Chaparral. And so that's, you look at that and you're wondering, why is Rock Canyon not a top 3 seed? Forget about, one is, I think we can all agree that one is Chap. And I
have Rangeview's my number 1. I think I had, when I last put out my rankings, I had Rangeview 1, Chap 2, RV. No, Rock Canyon was 3 and RV was 4. And I think that, not to hijack it, but Rock Canyon, man, they can rock, fight, or run, and it's amazing. They can slow down and just like grind it. They're conditioned to do that, but also at the same time, the Elwood kid does not get enough credit for being a really good point guard and just making things happen. Jacob David's kind of known in the recruiting circles because he's, a 6'7" junior that shoots threes.
And you want to talk about a kid who made leaps, who got so much better from last season.
Yeah. It's really starting to click for him. And then the Lehman kid, he just does stuff. Like, it's just the way that they, like, if he hits a big 3 in the last game, that really changes the course of the game for him. And then you got, it's just the way that those 3 play together. And it's just like Cooper or Elwood and Lehman, they just make things happen. You need a big 3, I'll hit a 3. You want me to go steal the ball and change the whole course of the game? Sure, I can do that. And David can score with the best of them. So they're not a team to be slept on at all. if they're that one team that kind of gets in that, if they're the one that gets in the Final Four, does not surprise me one bit.
Before we move on to 5A, what's the grade 8 matchup that you want to see the most with how the bracket is lined up? Doug.
Well, Matt just talked about it. It's Shap Mountain Vista. I think in that first quadrant, I mean, there's the immediate history there, but there's also a lot of history when you look back at, previous state tournaments and league games and things like that. I mean, I think, I don't know if those two schools consider themselves, to be rivals. I kind of look at it as they are. But I think that just feels like two really good teams. Either one could make it to the Final Four. Either one could win it all, for that matter. And so the fact that you're going to get them, or you hopefully will get them in the grade 8, that's just a matchup that everybody should be sitting on.
Matt, is there a matchup that jumps out, a potential grade 8 matchup that you're going to be front and center locked in for?
All of them. I hate to kind of take the easy way out, but and not really, like, I've gone through my bracket, and I kind of just really focus more on the first couple rounds because I think the top 8 will be there. I don't see any really big upsets really looming. Maybe I think a second edition of Mountain Vista Chaparral could be fun. I like Doug's thing there. Whoever Rangeview plays, is that Roston Valley, or is that a Final Four? No, that'd be a Final Four game.
That would be Cherry Creek if you were going by the seed.
That could be fun. Cherry Creek's been interesting all year. It's a younger bunch. Monte Johnson has done a great job running their point guard. He's a sophomore. Caden Patrick, if you look at him and you go, I think I see Graham Ike in his future, you're like, yeah, or sorry, Ike, you would definitely say, yeah, that's what it looks like. They got a 7-footer. Matt Barnett's kid is really starting to take those strides and starting to become a lethal outside shooter. So, I mean, they're kind of fun. But I think they're just they're one seed. They need a little more seasoning to pull that one off.
Yeah, Matt, you make a great point. I would add to that, year in, year out, whether you're talking, 6A boys or girls, 5A boys or girls, the grade 8 is where it's at. I mean, you really get to see which players and which teams are going to shine when it comes to, vying for a state championship, and you get to see them all at once.
That's my favorite weekend. I like
to beat. Yeah.
That's my favorite weekend. It's like the first two. It's like the first weekend of the NCAA tournament is my favorite. I get to see everything, and I'll get to be courtside, probably harassing Dan at some point in time.
Well, I mean, just to give you a heads up, I already emailed Amanda McClure over at CHSAA and told her, hey, I'm RSVPing now because I need, a couple seats that week, as close to center court as you can get,
right,
to avoid the hiccups of last year. So
there you go.
I want to see that Arvada West and Rock Canyon game, and of course, now that I say that, and our buddy Jairus Crapshaw, if he happens to take a look at this, I know he's going to maybe fire a text my way and say we'll see. But but I would love to see that showdown, because I think Rock Canyon definitely belongs in that upper echelon of teams that we're talking about that can win a state title. And Ken Grams is a guy that I'm always going to root for. He's just a good, solid dude and is in this for the right reasons. So that's where I stand on that. I had in my notes a little chat, and Matt, this is another podcast for a different day. How the bracket fell versus what the Max Preps rankings would have been.
I didn't even look at that.
There are a couple that here's what this is my very brief and very anecdotal observation. I think Max Preps is more accurate at the top of the bracket and way less accurate at the bottom.
I can see that.
We're going to go right back to what I said earlier. All that tells me is the playoff field is too big. So 40 is too many. 40 is too many.
I'm at a I'm at a crossroads in my life where it's like I understand the idea of letting kids have opportunities. Like I truly believe in it, but at the same time, at what cost? Because are you really giving these kids an opportunity to win a state tournament or a state title or whatever it is, or have that moment in the sun in the state tournament? And what it act like? Is it really act? And then without a human element in all this, and without, really relying a lot on the machines, and like, well, there's so much other things that go into it. Like you said, that's another podcast for another time. I understand ish the original reasons, but at the same time, when we had that 1 year of 32, it was so much better than 40.
Yes, always. It's always going to be that way. Speaking of poor disenfranchised people that just need an opportunity, I saw the in-studio count go from 4 to 5, which means I believe Kyle Newman is sitting in the wings waiting, and we're happy to bring him in right now because I know he'd love to talk some boys hoops as we move into the 5A field. Kyle, it's been so long since we've had to look at each other.
Great to see you guys. Yeah, great coverage at State Wrestling, Colorado Preps Crew. I know I was giving you crap, Dan, but no one covers Colorado high school sports like you guys. And don't tell my bosses I said that. Okay.
Problem is, it's a different boss now, and I like the old guy. I haven't had a chance to meet the new guy, but great job by the post as well. Sean Keeler's always fun to have around and have him tap my shoulder. Hey, Kyle's gone, so you have to be my preps know-it-all guy here for a few minutes. So